Hey YouTube, how's everybody doing? My name is JC and welcome to the Cuban Redneck DIY channel. Yes, this is a DIY channel and I know we're in the kitchen. I hope that everybody can live with a compromise of doing foodie videos on Tuesdays and DIY stuff on Friday. This recipe has come as a request from you, the subscribers. And this particular recipe that I'm about to do today is called Ropa Vieja. It's a classic national Cuban dish. This is your first time here, welcome. I want to give double thumbs up to all the new subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed, man, help me out. Click that little button. It's 100% free and it really helps me out. So how did this come about? We were having a discussion on Facebook and a gentleman was saying that he's tried several YouTube recipes for Ropa Vieja and they don't quite match up what he's had at restaurants. Well, I went to YouTube and I started looking around and probably browsed through like 10 videos and they're all on the same subject. They're all trying to speed it up. They're all trying to cut corners. I'm sorry, but Ropa Vieja is not the type of dish that you want to do on Tuesday where you got late from work and you just want to put you just want to put a plate of food on the table. Ropa Vieja takes time. It's a slow cooking type of dish. And, taking shortcuts, I don't know. I just never been a fan of that stuff. I've never been a fan of microwave dinners, things of that nature. I've had food made on the Instapots and the Ninjas and things like that. And in my opinion, that takes what is called in the restaurant business seasoning forward. Seasoning forward means that when you take a bite, you're tasting all the seasoning, and then you start chewing, and that the seasoning goes away, and then what you have in your mouth is, I don't know, it could be leather, plastic, anything. It really doesn't taste like much. And that is because of speeding it up. No matter how much you speed it, how much pressure you put it under, you're not going to get flavors to penetrate the meat because that only happens with time. So know that I'm not a chef. I consider myself a cook. Pretty decent one. Okay, I guess. I started working very young when I was very young, and I worked in several pretty famous Cuban restaurants in the Miami area. I've also worked in some pretty high-paced cooking environments, the Fontainebleau Hilton in Miami Beach, the Eden Rock right next door. Sometimes we've done events in there where they feed like 4,000 or 5,000 people. That production line, man, is like, phew. By the time you done plating, I don't know, 1,500 plates or so, your shift is over. You don't even want to go home. You just want to find a place to crash and take a nap. So with that said, I have been able to trace Ropa Vieja back to capitalist Cuba when people were driving Cadillacs and owning homes and going on vacations. I was actually trace it to a menu in the Habana Libre, which is pretty big hotel, pretty famous hotel in downtown Havana. Also, all the resorts in Varadero. So the dish, I guess, goes back about 100 years or so. The name doesn't make any sense in English because in straight through translation means all clothes. I can only guess, and it has to do with the Cuban factor, and that is that we nickname all kinds of stuff. I grew up with people, Tito, Nana, Pepito, whatever, and their given name had nothing to do with those nicknames, but we nickname everything. So I can only guess that somebody 100 years ago was describing or put a nickname to what the final dish, plated dish looks like. And that is like shredded cloves. And this is a shredded beef dish. And it's extremely savory. And whether your Ropa Vieja is on point or not, I would like to challenge you to try this recipe because I think you'll be amazed of what a difference slow cooking makes. Stick around. Alright guys, before we start preparing, let's talk about ingredients. The first thing and the start of the show is 1.5 pounds of flank steak. Yes, flank steak, there are no substitutes. The original recipe calls for flank steak. Everything else is just cutting corners. You cannot make smoked salmon using tilapia. It's just not the same thing. In the plate back there, we have 3 different color peppers. That is not necessary. You can use the same color. It just looks better when you're plating. I will be using about 1/2 or so of each. I have a half an onion. I'm going to be using about 5 cloves of garlic and a couple of bay leaves. Over here, we have some Spanish olives, some tomato sauce, some tomato paste, some diced tomatoes. You know I prefer the fire roaster ones. We have some sazon Goya with azafran. We're also going to need some dry wine for deglazing and a little bit of sugar to tame it down. For our braising liquid, I'm going to use beef flavor broth. Vegetable or chicken will do. For our dry spices, basically what I've done here is I separated into 2 equal parts. You're going to need, so it's a half a teaspoon here, half a teaspoon there. And what we have here is some salt, black pepper, cumin, garlic powder, paprika, onion powder, oregano, and a hint of allspice in the center. So with that said, let's start preparing. We'll start by seasoning the steaks with half of our seasoning. The other half will get added to the braising liquid a little bit later. After cutting the steaks into pieces about 2/3 the size of your saucepan, I rub the meat making sure it's well covered. I then made a pouch with aluminum foil and put them in the fridge for about an hour. An hour or so later, I got back at it by putting a deep saucepan into high heat with a little bit of oil and searing each of the steaks for about 2 to 3 minutes per side. We don't want to cook them, we just want to brown them and create a fond in the pan. Once done, turn the heat to medium and add the onions, followed by the garlic, the rest of the spices, and cook for about a minute. Deglaze the pan with about 2 to 3 tablespoons of dry wine. Add the diced tomatoes, add the tomato sauce, and about 16 ounces of stock. Add the steaks back to the braising liquid. Put the heat back to high, and once at a boil, add the tablespoon of tomato paste and the 2 bay leaves. And we're going to cook it in low for 2 hours. After the time has expired, please turn off the heat and let it cool down at room temperature. Here's where I think that many home cooks differentiate from the restaurant, and that is in the restaurant, la ropa vieja is not served the same day, but rather left in the fridge overnight, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the secret to my ropa vieja. The next day, about an hour before dinner, I shredded the meat by hand. You can use a fork if you want, but when the beef is this tender, it's better to do it by hand. Once done, we'll put it back and set the temperature to medium-high. After the pot has come to temperature, we'll add the pre-sliced peppers, about a half cup of sliced olives, and a heaping teaspoon of brown sugar. Cover it and cook on the medium heat for 20 minutes. I don't believe the peas are part of the original recipe, but I like the additional sweetness and depth they add to the dish. So about 5 minutes before plating, I will add about a cup of frozen peas. 5 minutes later, this is what we have. A delicious, super tender, super savory Cuban ropa vieja. Please support this channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing. And don't forget to hit that notification bell. Thank you.